there, but one other day that Leon was out maybe scouting for a place to put his studio, the phone rings, and she said she answered it, and the guy on the phone said it was George Harrison. And she thought it was a prank call and hung up. And then he called back later, and he did convince her that it was, in fact, George Harrison, the Beatle. And she said she held the phone out away from her and screamed like a little girl. She told me this story right downstairs in the lobby, and she said he said he was George Harrison, and he really needed to get a hold of Leon, and so she tracked Leon down, and he called. And the reason that he wanted to talk to Leon was he was putting together a benefit concert, which became known as the Concert for Bangladesh. And that concert is very historical in that it's the first superstar charity concert. We have them all the time now, but that was the first. They did 2 shows in Madison Square Garden, 22,000 people at each show. I think George Harrison originally was hoping to get the Beatles back together, but that didn't work out. So he got Eric Clapton, he got Leon, he got Bob Dylan, he got Klaus Voormann, a bass player that played with the Beatles, and some others to be in the band. And he had Leon help organize it because he had just done the Mad Dogs. It was a very similar thing. I mentioned that Mad Dogs, there were 2 drums and 2 basses. Well, all of Leon's bands were always heavy bass like that because of his cerebral palsy and his left hand being the dominant hand. Everything was a little heavy on the bass. If you really listen to his music, you'll hear that throughout. So Concert for Bangladesh had 2 drums, Ringo Starr and Jim Keltner from Tulsa. They had 2 bass players, Klaus Voormann, who had played with the Beatles, and Carl Radle from Tulsa. They were a little bit worried about Clapton because he was still partying a lot then. So they had another Oklahoman, Jesse Ed Davis, who played with Taj Mahal, who was a really great guitar player, Native American guy, there just in case Clapton couldn't perform. So about a third of the Bangladesh concert were Tulsa and Oklahoma people. And some of the choir from Mad Dogs was also backup singers at that concert. So Leon, again, he played a pivotal role he did a version of Jumpin' Jack Flash that was just outstanding, and most people that watch things, that's one of the things they remember. And the other thing that happened significant was that Bob Dylan showed up. And the reason I say he showed up is that he'd been in a motorcycle wreck and had not been performed in 2 years, I'm sorry. And I mean, the tabloids had said he was dead, they said he was maimed, they said he was disfigured, but he was fine. He just was recuperating, and so they had George talked him into performing. Well, he didn't show up. He didn't show up for rehearsals and stuff. He did show up the night before for sound check, and then he showed up about 3 hours before the first show of the concert was supposed to do. And obviously he hadn't practiced with the band or anything, so he says, well, I will go on, but I want George Harrison and Leon Russell to accompany me. And they did essentially an acoustic set. Now Leon, strangely enough, Dylan asked Leon to play the bass. It's the only time we know that Leon played the bass on stage. But he did, and that just showed what a great musician he was. He could play anything. And George Harrison played rhythm guitar, and then Dylan had an acoustic guitar and his harmonica. And they did 4 or 5 songs. It was the longest set of the whole concert. Between shows, Leon and Dylan got to know each other better and had conversations about music writing. And I've heard interviews by both where they credit the other guys, giving them good ideas for music writing. And one thing that Dylan told Leon, and Leon had already kind of figured this out, but that you don't want to write hits, you want to write standards. So you want other people to record your music. And if you think of Dylan, how many people have recorded his music? Well, Leon at Masquerade, over 100 people have recorded it. A Song for You, over 400 people have recorded it. People from Willie Nelson to Ray Charles to the Carpenters. And Leon called that mailbox money. And he probably really made more money off of royalties than he did performing himself. So that relationship grew out of that. So now the concert for Bangladesh is over.